right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA podcast. My name is Keith Parrish, and I'm here through the miracle of computer phone with my buddy Dave Dufour. Dave, we ride. How's it going?
It's going great. Excited to be back.
I'm excited to be back. I've been away for a little bit. For those of you who only listen to Fast Break Breakfast, of course, I've been slaving hard over the worst Grizzly season imaginable over on Grits and Grinds. But yeah, it's been a couple of months since I did a Fast Break Breakfast episode that was public. Many people have reached out online and said, hey, what's going on? And I feel like most questions were answered in the most recent episode that was public of Fast Break Breakfast. Let me know how many people, one, did not listen, two, did not listen to the end. But
what about offline? Anybody in real life say, hey, Keith, I miss Fast Break Breakfast?
Several people offline have said, I miss Fast Break Breakfast. I appreciate all two of you who have reached out.
It's my favorite podcast, so, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you can help be a part of it right now. Not that many people offline reached out and asked what's going on, because I assumed the people who did not know what was going on don't have a way to contact me. Also, I think Elon Musk shut down people's DMs. Like, if I don't pay Elon Musk money, no one can DM me, even, or people who don't follow me can't DM me. Like, you can't have open DMs anymore. That's good for business.
No open DMs, no open borders.
No open DMs.
This guy is very consistent.
Yeah. I will say, I missed doing the show. There was things that have occurred where I'm like, I would like to talk with these people or talk about these subjects. So like what? I have been watching basketball. I mean, I'm still deep in it. I still watch it every night. There are some benefits to not maybe doing 5 podcasts a week. Like, I'm able to coach my kids' sports. I'm able to go to all my kids' sports. I'm able to, like, we went on spring break, Dave.
Wow.
And it wasn't like, oh, I got a podcast about this. We went to a Grizzlies Wizards game. We went to the Tyus Jones tribute video game. It was all 11 people there gave him a standing ovation. It was beautiful.
So wait, for spring break, you went to Memphis?
Yeah. Well, so like my wife and I, we're pretty bad about like booking travel. We're pretty bad about like actually planning ahead. My wife's excuse is she has a very important, stressful job. My excuse is I'm a loser, or I don't possess.
Like, that's very much, I think, your job.
No, it's 100% my job. Societally, the patriarchy has established me to be like, it's not what am I supposed to plan a vacation? That's not my job.
That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, I know how to read a map, right? So
yeah, I used to travel when I was single.
Yeah.
I used to travel before I had kids, but now, like, I don't know, you get playing like schedules and
surfer,
I don't love, I was a couch surfer. I don't love traveling that much, but anyways, we felt like, all right, it's spring break. We know some people who are going on big trips. We should do something. And so like we pieced together something like, I mean, the in-laws helped. The in-laws took the kids to the zoo. I took my son to see Lionel Messi play. Then we went to Memphis. We stayed at the Peabody Hotel. We splurged. That's right. We went and saw the Ducks march. We saw a basketball game. I was prepping my kids. I was like, these are two of the worst teams. And they sort of know, like they're aware the Grizzlies lose all the time. They started asking like, hey, did the Grizzlies win? No.
Dude, you know what though? This is great because now they're aware and it's like, oh, the Grizzlies are bad. Yeah. They're going to be good again next year.
The funniest part about watching the Grizzlies game. So like, I've taken my son and daughter, but mainly my son is more aware. He has this like negative thing where like my teams never win. Some of that's like the sports teams he plays on. They're not very good. Is it largely his fault? Yes, that plays a role. He's not very good at sports, but like we go to these soccer games. He's like, the team never wins. Technically the soccer team always ties. It's a draw every time basically. But I was like, I really wish the Grizzlies would win. Because I wanted to break the teams I cheer for don't win, which is not true. But anyways, the Grizzlies ran out 8 guys to play this game. You want to guess which player led the Grizzlies onto the court for the pregame warmups?
Santi Aldama.
No, it was Jake LaRavia. Jake LaRavia led 6 people onto the court. There were 6 people warming up 15 minutes before the game. And I'm like, son, I hate to tell you, the Wizards actually, they're like the worst team now. But I think that they're likely going to win. They did not win. The Grizzlies got up to this huge lead. Deke Giroux and Wenyen Gabriel were doing things. And anyways, the Grizzlies basically gave the lead up. They had a 6.5 minute stretch in the fourth quarter where they scored 2 points. And I'm just thinking, don't blow this lead. Just let my son see one win. And I was telling him at halftime, like, the Grizzlies were up by 25. I'm like, hey, I think we can blow this. Just so you know. I kept being like, our team is so bad. We have no shot. Anyways, the Grizzlies won by like 7 or something. And my son, at the end of the game, was like, that was the best game ever. So we started him off with Grizzlies Wizards, best game ever.
Wow, the bar is at the floor. I actually, it's funny. This is the first year that I've had time to take a vacation.
Oh yeah.
No daily ding,
No daily ding.
It hasn't been quite the burden. I mean, I'm still like, it's actually nice because I get to watch these games kind of at my own pace. Because I just work so much more behind the scenes. So yeah, I took a spring break, but
where'd you go?
My dog to a couple of national parks. Went and saw the Grand Canyon again. Just a nice little American Southwest Joshua Tree National Park.
Very impressive.
Camping. Yeah. Sedona. It was, it's nice.
Yeah, I think a lot about how my parents took us on spring breaks, where we would just hop in the station wagon.
And you just drive.
And we would just drive like however many miles. Like we drove to the Grand Canyon one year.
Because you're on 40. Like it's a straight shot.
Yeah. Oh, it's a straight shot. Just drive west for 30 hours or whatever it is.
I mean, once you get on 40, once you get to like, I don't know, you got to get on the other side of Albuquerque and then it's amazing.
Yeah. I get real worn out driving to Memphis. So that's the 200 miles down 40. And I'm like, whoo. My back is killing me. I'm glad you got to go on a spring break. Dave, I've been watching, I've been watching the league. I've been watching everything that's been going on. I still follow it. What?
Did you eat breakfast?
Are we still doing breakfast?
Yes.
I haven't eaten breakfast for 2 months. I gave it up.
What happened to you?
I gave it up. I said, oh, all right. No, I took a break. No, I have not actually eaten breakfast today. Have you eaten breakfast today?
I ate breakfast.
What was your breakfast?
Never eat breakfast. No,
I know you're not a breakfast guy. I wasn't even going to do it.
Things have changed, Keith. I actually just I started running.
Okay. You used to walk.
Now I still walk.
You
walk a lot.
Just prodigious amounts.
Yeah. I mean,
Bill Simmons amounts.
Oh, no way. That guy's not touching me. Yesterday,
Bill Simmons, I listen to his podcast a lot, and he's always like, I walked 11 miles today. I'm like, you did what?
Yeah. I mean, I think yesterday I'm at like 15. Okay. I mean, I live in a super walkable place, luckily, and just don't have any need to drive. But I started running, and I mean, look, I've done some wild things to my body and with my body in my life, including like I ate 7,000 to 10,000 calories a day for about a year and a half.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I was lifting a lot of heavy weight and also just trying to get big. So I have never felt so hungry in my life. And I mean, I'm just running like a 5K every day. It's not like a big deal. And I am starving. So I woke up this morning and I had some leftover pizza.
Oh,
I know. It felt perfect. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk to Keith. Gonna eat this cold pizza. This is if I had some just plain rice, and maybe like I don't know, a handful of berries or some kind of nuts, that would have been a Keith Parrish breakfast.
I wish you hadn't told me about that. That's what I wish. Handful of nuts and plain rice. What was on the pizza?
It was an everything pizza, so sausage, pepperoni, green pepper. Yeah, it's very good. And then, some home-brewed cold brew.
Nice. Well, thanks for edifying us with your breakfast, for picking up the slack there. But what I want you to do now, Dave, just imagine I haven't been watching basketball for the last 2 months. What do you think if I woke up from, let's say I went on a wilderness retreat / technology purge and went out camping, something I would never, ever do, both the technology purge and the camping. And I returned and you're like, Keith, you've been watching the NBA basically your whole life. You're never going to believe what has occurred in the last 2 months. What would you start with? Maybe there's no story that you would start with, but what's something you would say, Keith, you have to know this is happening right now?
I think the biggest thing is actually the biggest thing in the NBA. Biggest person in the NBA. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama, like the Spurs need to go all in this summer on Victor Wembanyama. Like they need to just put a contender around him now. He's ridiculous. And if you were to have watched like his first week in the NBA, his most recent week, you would think that it had maybe been 5 years difference. It's literally like night and day. And it's not like he came in a complete scrub.
Right.
But man, this guy is so good now. He's got I went through the stats since your last show.
Yeah.
He has 12 games where he has at least 5 blocks.
Well, he posted, so obviously I have been aware of Victor Wembanyama. I was sketching out some of the biggest things that I thought about, like not even big stories nationally, but like the things I would be interested in on my little divergent basketball podcast where we talk about weird topics. A lot of it has been like, wait, he did a 5x5, or like he did back-to-back games with 5 blocks and 5 steals. And then we find out like this is the first time since Michael Jordan that this has happened. And then you read all these things about like, hey, the Michael Jordan scorekeeper in the 80s was just giving him all kinds of blocks and assists for everything. And so like, yeah, a lot of it for me, when I'm like, the one thing I think I might've been talking about, like I would have mentioned Daniel Gafford's pursuit of Wilt, going for the 35 straight made field goals, but it's these stats by Wembanyama. Like I remember Summer League game 1 to Summer League game 2, where it was like newborn deer on ice versus, oh my, he shuts down 3/4 of the half court when he's back on defense. And then I like what you're saying. It feels like he's matured 5 seasons based on how he was earlier in the year. And like, I will say, if you watch a whole game, which frankly, I don't do that much of the Spurs, but if you watch the whole game, you still see some of that awkwardness. Like he's not the best player on the planet. It's only when you look at the box scores and the highlights where you're like, wait a minute, is this guy the best player on the planet? Because the stuff he's doing is just remarkable. Here's a stat. Since the last public Fast Break Breakfast episode, which was on January 12th, Victor Wembanyama has the most block shots in the NBA by a mile. He has more blocks over that time span than Jaren Jackson Jr., Jared Allen, and Kristaps Porzingis combined. He
has 200 blocks and over 100 made threes.
Yeah, he has 40 more blocks in the last 2 months than second place, which is the rookie Chet Holmgren. Like his stats for this season now, what is it? It's 21 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 4 blocks and 4 assists. It's madness. He's an 80% foul shooter. He makes 3-pointers. There have been so many plays where our minds aren't used to it. Like, I mean, I don't know how to like quantify them in an audio format. Like one thing I saw, the NBA tracked a shot for one of the Spurs' opponents as wide open, and he blocked it. It's like whatever his second spectrum is like. There was like 6 feet of space between the defender and the shooter. That's a wide open 3-pointer, and it got blocked.
What he has done, so he is statistically, I think it stands out. And Kirk Goldsberry did some charting on this, where talking about his individual impact. I mean, you just watch him, and they go from one of the worst defensive teams with him off the court that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
To it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He gets to everything. He makes mistakes and still gets to stuff. And not just blocks, but the steals too, right? Like he's got we need to bring back the sports science stuff just so we can see. His hands are incredibly fast. If you look, I mean, he doesn't foul often. And for a center that blocks so many shots and gets so many steals, it's pretty incredible, but it's legit. He really just doesn't foul much. He's got great hands, great touch, just really fast. Good body positioning, even when he's out of position. Like his balance and his coordination is excellent. The guy moves around like a ballerina. He really does. Like he's very light on his feet. I think we all see a guy that tall, and the first thing we think is, oh, he's going to be hurt. Well, I don't think he's going to have to worry about his body breaking down, not for a long time. It's going to be all about can he keep other guys from rolling up under him, landing on a foot wrong, stuff like that. But the guy
taking a charge on him.
We got to ban.
We're not talking about this is a no charge zone episode. We're not even getting into charges today.
Wemby like Tom Brady, man. Like, look, anybody touches him too much, just blow to whistle.
Can you imagine if Steve McNair played in the modern NFL where everything was roughing the passer? I don't think he drew a single roughing the passer penalty, and they were trying to murder him. Meanwhile, Peyton Manning, if he got hit 15 yards every time, that's your.
Well, they treated McNair like he was a tailback, man. Like, not even, But Wemby
he was getting speared out of bounds every play. Anyways,
what Wemby's doing, I obviously just never seen it. I mean, he did this a dunk that's never been done before. This little lefty scoop from the block, like, nobody's even tried it.
So you said the Spurs should go all in next year.
I mean. Listen,
no, I know what you're saying.
Little facetious, but
it's time now.
He's going to be. I think he's like a top 15 player today, and by the time we get to next October, he might just be a tier 1 guy, like from the jump. Like he may be the Kareem.
The things I don't get.
Player.
It's still like it goes to with everything he's doing, and even when you watch him, you're like, this is remarkable. This is unique and no one else can do this. And he is so dominant. Like he's going to finish first team all defense because of the block numbers. And he might win defensive player of the year. He's going to win.
Gobert's going to win it.
Okay. But he's going to win. Like what's the over under career defensive player of the years? If you were setting the line now, like 3.5, 4.5.
3.
Yeah. Like I'm saying the gambling line, but I thought the gambling line would be 3.5,
at least.
So I still am confused though why the Spurs are so horrible, and it seems like he could maybe push the needle a little bit more in the win-loss column, but we don't have to worry about it now. We can just enjoy him
they win the minutes he's on the court.
So
often.
I was thinking about how mind-blowing he is, and I was thinking like not just the Spurs should go all in, like should other teams, like do they need to go all in? Based on, hey, Wemby's going to get like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Like, I don't know what teams are supposed to do. I mean, I thought this was the way for like any team. Like you look at Jokic, maybe you can't look at the league, the way the league is and try to plan out in the future. Maybe it's probably futile because everything changes so much every few years, but like, should the Thunder go all in like in the next 2 years? Or it's like, hey, cause guys, Wemby's coming.
Wemby's coming. I think the Thunder actually should go all in. I mean, they've got an MVP level player. I think Jalen Williams, people are still asleep on Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
Like they know he's good, but like this guy is, I think, a number 1 on a good team. Good.
Yeah.
And so they've got 2 of those guys.
I don't know if he is yet, but I would say he's definitely in the next 2 years. He could be. Yeah. Like, it's not going to be stunning if Jalen Williams makes an all NBA team in the next couple of years. I will tell you for fantasy basketball, if you're in a keeper league, sorry, if you don't have Wemby, like your opponent in the categories league, they've won steals and blocks for the next,
he's going to shoot 50, 40, 90.
Eventually he is. I think he's going to go up to these DeMontis / Jokic field goal percentage numbers.
Oh,
he's going to be making 60% of his attempts.
36% from 3 since your last show, and only 32% on the season. Right? Like, no. So I'm saying he's up now. Like that's another thing he's gotten better at.
One thing I realize I do, and I think we might do as an NBA fan base at large, is we do sometimes get a little bit over our skis for rookies. So like. I think about personally, there's been a few instances in my life where I saw either a rookie or a second-year player where I thought to myself, oh my God, the league's never going to recover. Or like, this guy's going to be the best player ever. And that that hasn't panned out for a lot of these things. Like here's some circumstances I thought of that I thought were somewhat comparable. And I've realized as I came up with these names, these were all basically in college. So you can just put that away to like, I was less experienced in watching the NBA, but I remember a few where like, I remember Amari Stoudemire in his first couple of years, maybe year 2, where I was like, is this guy going to be the best power forward ever? Because he was scoring like 30 points per game. He dunked over everyone, but he also had a beautiful looking jumper. And so there was this brief moment where I'm like, oh my goodness, Stoudemire's gonna be the best player ever. That didn't really happen. I think back before that's
he also had the injuries really.
He had injuries. Yeah. He also had a perfect point guard who was setting him up for these things.
Yeah.
I've even like on a smaller scale, like very, very recently, I think about like Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes, where we're like, Evan Mobley might be Tim Duncan.
Now Mobley, exactly. Now,
and then it's like, nope. But like going back, like turning the clock way back, I remember Vince Carter in like his second year. He had these plays. I want to say in my memory, and I haven't looked on Basketball Reference to confirm my memory. It might be a false memory, but in my memory, Vince Carter in like a week had multiple game-winning shots where one week he just hit a game-winning 3-pointer. And of course, everything he did was so smooth and beautiful through most of his career, his athleticism unparalleled. But he had like this game-winning 3-pointer. He's like a 25 point per game scorer in like the mold of Michael Jordan. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy might be headed to be one of the all-time greats. But then he had, I want to say, a couple of game-winning dunks where the Raptors had like the final possession. He dribbles the clock out, waits till there's like 4 seconds left, and then dunks over the entire team. It was like Space Jam. It was like Zion Williamson on Tuesday night. When he dribbles over everybody, dunks it in a way I didn't know anyone can do. And I was kind of like, oh, I guess the league's just over. If you don't have Vince Carter going forward, you're not going to win. Of course, none of that ever happened. He became a very good player, but he didn't ascend to like the best player in the world. Now, if you fast forward to Victor, the difference is he's just physically so different. It's like there actually is no parallel to his physical gifts. So do you take that as like, all right, we can pump the brakes a little bit? We get super excited for
I'm not pumping the brakes.
Not pumping the brakes at all.
Okay. Because it's just different. I mean, he's different.
Yeah.
Completely different. But I will say this, I think right now, Jokic obviously is the best player in the world. I don't think that's going to change here in the next couple of years. I think Wemby's time is not yet, and he's not going to be able to do it alone. The NBA is too good. Yeah. Right? I mean, there's just too many good players and schemes, and frankly, coaches. Right, Wemby's going to have to. The scouting report is going to catch up with Wemby, I guess, at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the struggle that we actually love about basketball. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Like Anthony Edwards, I don't know, man. He's kind of got the dog in him, right? So it's like, I don't know, man.
Can we talk about? This has been a subject of debate among NBA fans. I want to talk about Anthony Edwards' dunk over
best thing of the.
Yeah, he hurt himself. He hurt John Collins. He caused Kyle Anderson to do the scream, to put both hands on his face and scream. It was the funniest reaction ever.
It was so
but
good.
He didn't touch the rim. I've long been an advocate that I don't care if a player touches the rim. I think a dunk, this is my definition of dunk. If you throw the ball in forcefully from above the rim, that's a dunk. I have no problem with the Dwight Howard Superman dunks or the thrunks, the throwing it in. I think that's a dunk. Do you agree, or do you have a different perception? Do you have to touch the rim for a dunk?
I mean, I think it was a dunk. I mean, it was clearly a dunk.
It was clearly a posterization.
Throwing it into the rim. That is a dunk.
That's how I say.
And also, the only thing that stopped his hand from going is John Collins is like, 6'9", 265, 270, and their bodies collided. That's it. I mean, it was, yeah. Someone made a poster out of it. And if the Timberwolves would actually do this, like it's 1991,
I don't know how
absolutely hang that.
I don't know how teams make money other than through the Saudi Wealth Fund and gambling. More on that in a second.
Yeah.
But it does seem like you could print up physical posters and charge $9.99 for them and sell thousands.
People don't like stuff on their wall.
I think you capture the zeitgeist of this moment, sell those posters. Yeah, I feel like you would sell tons of them. Why don't we do it?
Yeah.
And then just wait for the cease and desist. We'll have to steal that guy's photo.
Hey, honestly, it sounds like a new t-shirt for Fastbreak Breakfast.
If a player grabs the rim, puts the ball in from above the rim, grabs it, but does it softly, is that a dunk? Because I would say
that's a layup.
It's a layup. I don't care if you grab the rim. You laid it up. You laid it in. I'd actually never done this. This is not prep. During the show, I just looked up the definition of dunk. This is Oxford Dictionary. The basketball definition is score by shooting the ball down through the basket with the hands above the rim. Says nothing about touching the rim. So we agree. Definitely a dunk. End of controversy. Now,
touching the rim, technically illegal. As the ball's passing through the basket, it's basket interference. So.
Doesn't the rule book have a specific exception I think it does for touching the rim.
Yeah.
The one thing that is that I did forget, I saw Chet Holmgren with a block recently where he basically, like, if you lay the ball in right over the cylinder, that's the Wemby defense. Because as long as the ball's right over the cylinder, like, there is an exception with dunking if it's still touching your hand, but once it's released from your hand, then it's a basket interference. Anyways, speaking of controversy, Dave, here's something. These things are sort of intertwined. I don't know where I want to start with this. Let's actually talk about gambling. This is a recent news. The NBA, in their never-ending search for revenue streams, has done lots of different things, much like podcasters. This gambling talk is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you want to use promo code FBBF, Underdog Fantasy, which purports to be a fantasy site where you win money, for legal reasons, they're not gambling, according to many states. But if you want to play Underdog Fantasy, they'll match your opening deposit up to $100. Now, is it hypocritical for me to give you a Underdog Fantasy ad and to now maybe criticize gambling? I don't know. I hope you users out there are responsible and understand that, like, this is a game and you don't make money. Like, you can make money, but it's rare. And I think it's weird that the NBA now has announced that their gambling, which is ubiquitous, it's on every broadcast, every single broadcast, because
ESPN has its own sports book.
Yeah, ESPN has their own sports book, like you just said. I'm now repeating for emphasis. The lines are in the games. Every single local broadcast has a same game parlay, basically, or they're trying to advertise you to gamble because all the teams get money from whatever it's DraftKings or FanDuel or
players retire and walk straight into gambling commercials.
The gambling sponsors most of the podcast industry. Like, ideally, in a more just, equitable system of making money, like capitalism right now doesn't super support the arts and or sports and or podcasting. Like, we have a great community of 200 something people who pay to the Patreon, help this show keep going. But like, when you do the shows, you're like, I want to make money doing this thing that people enjoy. I would love to sell an ad for, I don't know, tacos. Or, I would love to sell ads for,
come on down.
Like, hey, a sparkling water. That'd be amazing. But apparently there isn't the budget for it. The people who advertise on podcasts, by and large, it is, I think I'm not being a prude if I call them vices. It's alcohol companies. It's tobacco companies. I've chosen so I can choose which ads run on my shows to some degree. The filters don't totally work, but like, I've said no thanks to tobacco products. I've said no thanks to alcohol products. I think I'm okay with gambling products, but all of these things I consider to be, they're not good for you.
It's that stuff, and then they're
adult enjoyment things.
It's things that if you go on the FTC's website, you can see it's a lot of companies that have numerous complaints, let's just say. And maybe some of them just pay out the fines because they make enough money and it doesn't matter. That it's a lot of that too. Yeah.
So the NBA, I've basically buried the lead too. The NBA announced they're going to allow in-app. Well, the in-app gambling is not there yet, but it's going to be a goal apparently. But they're going to have on League Pass integrated gambling, just content, and it seems it's just too much. And I don't know why we're forcing this down people's throats. Like they would not do this with tobacco because, like, people admit tobacco is terrible for children, and a lot of this is like, I guess, a freedom of whatever, freedom of business, of capitalism to do whatever you want to your product. But like, it seems like there's downsides, there's negative consequences to a lot of these things. And like, I don't love the gambling part of sports now. Similarly, the league has said like no to adult entertainment advertising. They said no to pornography. They turned down the Bang Bros when they wanted to, like, or the Miami Heat did. They wanted to sponsor the arena. Like, I have trouble differentiating like advertisements for pornography, for alcohol, for tobacco, and gambling. It's all stuff generally society. We're like, well, we don't want kids to do it. And this also establishes can establish bad habits. And so like, it seems weird. There's not more like Ford, right. Or like McDonald's. Not that those things are not that McDonald's is good for you, but like, it seems weird how intertwined and okay the NBA is with this. Or am I just being Pollyannish? Or it's not weird?
No, I don't think so. Okay. I mean, we talk about this a lot. I'm anti-gambling. I think it's bad generally for society. I think it's awful for the sport.
Yep.
And it's kids are gonna watch this and it's just gonna warp their brain. And I just don't know what the hell you're doing as a sport. And by the way, you say allow the gambling lines. They're going to force it.
They're seeking it out.
Pop up. No. It is going to be a pop up. It's going to be invasive. It's going to, League Pass already doesn't work, right? Like it doesn't work.
That part's funny to me. It's like, we just want League Pass.
They work on anything but
we just want League Pass to not be a minute behind the action.
Yeah. But the thing is, the games don't matter to them.
Yeah.
The games don't matter to them.
So
they're just trying to constantly sell. So
since the last fast break, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, you're going to get to a point where you're going to you're going to turn off a bunch of people initially, right? You're going to have a lot of people who are like, well, I'll watch, but my kids aren't going to watch.
Well, what
happens to your league in 5-10 years from now?
I don't understand the end game.
It's money now. That's it. That's
because I'm going to be honest.
It's money today.
I don't think all these gambling companies aren't going to last, and so much it's the model of just, you have to get new consumers. If you don't get new consumers,
right.
Like you can't keep growing. But also here's a frustration, that goes into one of my favorite topics, which is, tanking. And one of my frustrations with the league's embrace with gambling is their way they've ignored just fantasy basketball, the fantasy aspect of their sport. And like the NFL, which is huge, made massive revenues pre-FanDuel, pre-gambling, just because fantasy sports was this huge market. Fantasy football is enormous. And I feel like the league's still total embrace of tanking and also of their schedule makes fantasy basketball way harder. And I don't understand why they're not putting more resources into, like, let's grow fantasy basketball. Like if the league had 58 games or 72 games or a standardized schedule where everyone played 3 games a week, fantasy basketball could be way bigger. Also in fantasy football, there's 18 weeks of an NFL season. Everybody knows you end your playoffs on the 17th week. Some even go to the 16th week to avoid players sitting out. The NBA in fantasy basketball is basically only for diehards. You have to finish your fantasy season. Like it should be over by now, basically. Like you need to finish your fantasy season a month early. And even still, even leagues that wrapped up last week, You had like Delano Banton swinging leagues because
Right.
like the product is a joke. And I know the flattened dots have helped some, where like the Spurs and Wizards are okay with maybe winning every now and again. The play-in has helped because more teams are going for it, but we still, the end of the year product is grotesque. And I mean, I saw it firsthand with some Wizards and Grizzlies games. We have some teams, I don't even get this, Dave. The Raptors have given up. The Raptors, I mean, some of it's injuries. They didn't choose to have Scotty Barnes, and there's a tragedy with RJ Barrett, and like they didn't choose Jakob Poeltl to get hurt, but like they're tanking out. They're tanking out, Dave, for a 55% chance to give the 7th, 8th, or 9th pick to the Spurs. I don't understand that organizational math right there. That's if they catch the Grizzlies. If they catch the Grizzlies, they only have a 45% chance at keeping their pick. That is wild to me. If they don't catch the Grizzlies, 67% chance that the Spurs get the 7th, 8th, or 9th pick. And it's all because we had this thing. And so, Dave, this is maybe the biggest storyline to me, and it's not NBA specifically related. In the last 2 months, the most exciting sports story I saw was the PWHL. That's professional women's hockey. They're in their inaugural season. It's coming up. They solved tanking. Have you seen this?
No.
Once a team is eliminated from the playoffs, any points they accrue in the standings, it's 3 points for a win, 2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for an overtime loss. Those go into your draft order points. I think they call them draft order points. So there's no benefit to losing ever. Seems very simple. I love it. If I saw a steak and eggs best thing, going to the breakfast buffet, that's it. Finally, a league brave enough to say, hey, losing is always bad.
And by the way, it's not the players that tank anyway.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
You know, this stuff is like very, like, it frustrates me, man. I feel bad for the athletes that have to deal with the ramifications of this stuff. We've talked about this. I would either eliminate the draft completely.
That would fix it.
Or a completely, like, an all 30 team lottery where every single year it's randomized, and then maybe with protection so that like you can't get the top 5 pick 2 years in a row or whatever. Right. I think the wheel idea that continuously comes up every few years is too convoluted.
Yeah.
It would be, honestly, it would be a pretty huge party if you did an all 30 team lottery. Like that would be a massive event that the NBA could like build a night around. So I think it'd be a little bit more fun instead of watching teams just fail their way into Victor Wembanyama. Although that was, masterful tanking.
I still feel passionately the whole season long. You can do, like, it's hard for it's hard for waiting for a team to get eliminated from the playoffs. Like, honestly, I wouldn't mind it once you get eliminated from a top 6 seed, the way we currently have it set up. Then any win you get, maybe that's a lottery point. I feel like that would help you. That might help teams that were pretty good. I still love my idea the whole season long. Anytime you beat a team that has the same record than you or a worse record than you, a better record than you, that gives you a lottery point. So like if you're bad, anytime you win, it helps you out. But
I mean, honestly, it would solve the issue that, remember, like the whole thing about being stuck in the middle, right? Like no one wants to be the 8th seed. No one wants to be the 7th seed. Whereas the play-in actually helped with that, right? Because people, teams kind of were like, oh, well, we got a puncher's chance now. I think that if you just had that, right, like you could solve that whole being stuck in the middle, and it eliminates tanking, and it makes it competitive to the middle. And then if you get there and you get a guy, hey, you're at the show, in a year or two.
Also, I mean, it would solve basically attendance problems in the NBA. It would increase the ratings. Right. And it would help your fantasy basketball. Another underrated thing for the diehard fantasy basketball players, of which I know you are not one. Two-way contracts.
A huge fantasy baseball player.
Two-way contracts mess up fantasy basketball because you don't even know if guys are going to play, because it's like, oh, well, this guy's going to play, but also he's only allowed to play 60% of the games. and there's no way to find out who's even going to play, it's a mess. It requires an unbelievable amount of attention to detail. And I feel like, hey, we can replace maybe some of that gambling money, putting gambling QR codes on the back of the referee jerseys. Maybe you could replace that just with like simple fantasy, not for money basketball. Dave, here's another non-NBA story I got to get to. It's basketball related, and it's maybe the most excited I've been statistically in a while. This was shared in our Patreon only Slack channel. Are you aware of JuJu Watkins?
Yeah.
Standout USC women's college basketball star. I'll admit, never seen her play basketball. However, her stats are blowing my mind. And you know I love what we'll call bad stats. Mm-hmm. She's put up some shooting performances this year on one of the best teams in college basketball that if they were in the NBA, the likes of which have not occurred basically since the 50s. She had a game this year, and this can be a prelude to our awards segment of the program. She had a game this year where she shot 6 for 32. Again, she was the top high school recruit in women's college basketball, played at Sierra Canyon. She is one of the best players in the country, on one of the best teams in the country, and yet went 6 for 32 in a game. There have only been in NBA history, there have been 5 shooting stat lines that have been that exceeding. Excuse me, only 4. Joe Fulks, of course, did it in 1947. Joe Fulks did it in 1948, 1968, John Havlicek. And then in 1980, Mike Mitchell had a 5 for 32 game. I'm surprised I don't remember seeing that box score before. Dave, do you know much about her? We should have gotten a JuJu Watkins expert on. They won the game.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they won that game. Yeah.
Here's her conference tournament stats. In the semifinals of the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-12
I think
conference.
This is the last year of the Pac-12, right?
In the semifinals, she shot 9 for 27, had 1 assist and 4 turnovers. They won. In the finals, she shot 2 for 15, had 1 assist and 6 turnovers. What is happening? They won. I got to say, I'm more intrigued by JuJu Watkins than maybe any other player outside of Victor Wembanyama right now.
Apparently they're good. I've seen JuJu Watkins play like a couple times on television. She can really play. They keep saying that she's probably the next, one to be able to threaten the scoring record.
Gotcha.
In a few years. I mean, she's super skilled from what I've seen, and clearly, like, the ball is in her hands. So
the ball's in her hands. She is
not going to beat herself.
She has 7 games out of 30 this year where she shot 50% or better. In those other games, here are 7 other shooting lines she's had. I already told you about 2 for 15 and 6 for 32. She's also gone 9 for 27, 10 for 30, 11 for 33, 7 for 24, and 8 for 27. You, JuJu, are my hero. Jumping JuJu Watkins, impressive
throwback
stats. Anyways, Dave, let's move to the awards segment of the program. This is time to do some business. First of all, we have to acknowledge some of our Patreon supporters for their accomplishments in our fantasy basketball leagues. Congrats to Mike Frederick and Mitchell Buchanan for making the finals of the Fastbreak Breakfast Dynasty League. It's a 30-team Dynasty Fantasy Basketball League, a remarkable achievement to make the finals. Congrats to the 4 people who have emerged from the 32-team Negative Fantasy League, the Negative Fantasy League, which is my great and good lasting contribution to the world of sports. Congratulations to Clint Harding, Patrick Kirkner, Jeff K, and me. We are fighting for the title there. Clint Harding, who only lost once all year, seems to be the man to beat there. In my regular fantasy league, unfortunately, I'm in the finals. No one likes it when the host wins. I'm in the finals against George. And then congrats to John Burr's league, which correctly finished up last week. In his 18-team listener league, John won the league over Joe Yoder. Congrats to John. In your face to all the other listeners. And now, Dave, this is the honorable reading of the best/worst shooting performances in the NBA since I last did a public episode of Fastbreak Breakfast. Oh, if you need to weigh in with an amen after any of these or anything,
I hope you've got the Sixers Knicks.
Sixers Knicks. I mean, this is its own thing, and I don't know if we have time to get into it. The downturn in scoring / the heroes of the NBA officials have fixed the NBA. Honestly, that
it's so good.
It's
you can
so
watch
good.
A game and not get mad, except they're still not calling travels. All right.
Yeah.
We got to get the travel.
That's all we're missing.
Amen Thompson had a great dunk the other night. Took 75 steps to get to the basket.
They're not even calling travels in the last 2-minute reports anymore. Like,
if they call the travels, man, we're
so close.
So good.
If we call the travels with the current officiating, we're so close. But let's table that for 1 second. Let me read off the worst shooting performances basically over the last 2 months. Saddiq Bey, before he unfortunately was lost for this season, gave us an 0 for 12. That's our biggest 0 for of the season. He did the full 0 for 12er Ariza. Congratulations, Saddiq Bey. We had 3 1 for 13s since the last episode. That's a pretty high number for 2 months. Malik Beasley, Devin Vassell, and Gigi Jackson all had 1 for 13s. Miles Bridges went 2 for 16 in a 36-point loss to the Bucks. And then Anthony Simons and Cam Thomas should both be recognized for posting 4 for 21s. Congratulations to all involved. Now, Dave, before we get out of here, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's praise the officials more. I don't think this is a controversial take. This seems to be an accepted conspiracy theory, perhaps a turkey bacon conspiracy theory. Adam Silver,
the officials, though.
No, Adam Silver was so disgusted by the All-Star game. He was so disgusted by 5 70-point games in the past 5 seasons, including 2 in a week. He was grossed out by Cat scoring 60 and then getting benched for the end of that game. He's like, something must be done. They've claimed there was no directive. So is this a rogue Monty McCutcheon who said we have to fix the game? But for whatever reason, it appears the imbalance in rewarding dumb offensive moves / non-basketball moves / veering into your opponent, they've really cut back on that, and the product is much more enjoyable to watch. Do you subscribe to any of those theories?
Look, I'm not going to be Charlie Brown kicking the football on this one. They've done this to me before, and I want to see this last before I start, giving anyone any praise. But it's clear to me that Adam Silver was embarrassed in the press conference. And by the way, this is like a little bit of journalism works, I guess, if it's journalism to ask about scoring in a basketball game that doesn't matter. I do think like him being put on the spot about the quality of the play absolutely led to a change. And I'm so glad that the folks that were there asking questions continued to press on it, because what they do is, and we talked about this before. Look, the NBA is a television show, and it has to be entertaining for television, and American audiences are themselves a unique beast, and you have to do things a certain way, and you got to sell all these ads, and you got to have these ad breaks, and okay, I understand all that. But the product that they give you is not basketball. It is a basketball product. It's like Velveeta is cheese. It is this weird thing where,
if you will.
They really do just try to like rub it. Well, if you know basketball, they rub it in your face a little bit. It's like, well, okay, that looks cool, but that's not basketball. It's sort of like, for some of the audience, they'll get this. I don't know if you will, but it's like, like real old school pro wrestling and some of the gymnastics you might see like on the indies to a certain degree. The thing that made pro wrestling fun and great and makes the good matches fun, it's a struggle. And sports should be a struggle. And if you've got, 5 guys and 3 referees all working to make sure one team scores, and that's just whichever team has the basketball, that's not a struggle. That's not a good way to do it. Also, saying that scoring is good, I guess it is. It's like saying home runs are good, but if every at bat is a home run, that's not good. It ceases to be special. So not that they need to, I don't want to go back to, the Knicks and Sixers every game.
Right.
But man, the Knicks and Sixers was a special game. I enjoyed watching it because it was so bad. It's like a pitcher's duel. And we just don't get enough variety in the style of games that we get. I think that this is the thing about sports. Not everybody gonna have it every night. You don't need to artificially buoy these scores so that when I'm looking, no one's looking at the box score the next day. These games don't matter like that. No one follows the NBA like that anymore. So stop acting like it. I care more about the sanctity of the 100-point game in basketball than maybe anybody else. I actually think 100 points, that's about where the game should end. So that way, if I am watching a game and it's like 120, 115, it's like, whoa, what happened? And if it's 79, 73, it's like, okay, wow, okay.
No.
Defense. I just think this stuff matters a little bit. But I also think this is why fans are kind of apathetic. And this is a much better product, though. You like
the scoring to be much like the Fahrenheit system. You want 100 to be like that's about the top.
I know where it is. Yeah. Well, Fahrenheit's so good for air temperature for that reason.
So I don't care as much about honestly, my preference. I like 110, 115. That's good. But I don't even care about it. This might just be the pendulum where we went from the 90s, it was bad, and maybe we hit the top of it, and now we're going to maybe swing back the other way. I don't want that to happen. I get on my high horse, and I feel like we've talked before and we probably agree about this. I just care about what I consider to be the sanctity of basketball. These moves are not basketball.
I want the dance.
The bailing out of players. Another theory is hey, Team USA has to play Serbia in the group stage of the Paris Olympics. We need to get used to international officiating where they don't fall for this nonsense. And it's they say, oh, you ran into that guy. That's your fault. And there's still going to be missed calls. It's not like the refs are not going to keep screwing things up, but it seems like we've gotten to a much better of you can't just flail into your defender. And I got to say, if you're watching the bad teams, which I'm doing because that's the Grizzlies, they've stopped calling everything. And I don't know if that's just hey, you guys are both eliminated.
Come on, let's just get it.
I want to get to TGI Fridays.
Let's respect the audience's time.
Yeah. And so they're calling it feels like so many fewer things, unless you're DeMar DeRozan. I see DeMar DeRozan still knows how to get to the foul line, but I love the steps the league has taken, and we agree. Let's keep it this way. Next, let's just step up on travels a smidge. Some of the step backs are absurd. The moves to the basket, you can't have
Darius Garland got called for one the other day.
They have added. They've added another step beyond the gather step. They have you control it. You can control it, and then you get your gather step. You're no, the gather step was its own thing. So we do that, and then Dave will work on the charge circle, and then basketball will be perfect. Also, we'll fix tanking. Anyways, Dave,
defensive 3 seconds. I think that's the single biggest change the NBA could make if you want to give the defense a chance.
Get rid of it.
I understand why they don't. Listen, the NBA is the only league in the world that has defensive 3 seconds. And I know why they do, because you want a clear lane, because you want dunks in traffic and you want that stuff. But offenses are too good now. They still get dunks in Europe, and they don't have the overwhelming amount of above the rim athletes that the NBA has. So I'd love to see them experiment with that in the G League and Summer League, and just
I'll tell you,
the game.
They experimented
get rid of those live ball timeouts, and now
get rid of live ball timeout. Now we're talking,
man.
They experimented with the no defensive 3 seconds last Grizzlies game. Marcus Smart was ejected for screaming about them not calling defensive 3 seconds. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks Dave for coming on. If you want to gamble, by all means do it. Just keep it out of my league pass. Anyways. You guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fastbreak Break, man. You understand?